fan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a fan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Damn You Hollywood, the show that it just won't die. It won't go away. It's I don't know, like a bad penny, like a rash, just never actually going away. I'm Robert Winfrey, and here with me is Mark Radulich, who I joke about illness, but who seems to be coughing up a lung over there. Mark, you okay? Do we need to call a doctor? I mean, I live pretty much literally on the other side of the country, but...
Are you a doctor?
Well, I'm not a medical doctor.
What kind of doctor are you?
I'm a chiropractor. I'm kidding. I'm not.
Are you really?
I almost said dentist because that's like the lowest form of like pseudo... I have this on-running gag with one of my brothers about this because and bear in mind that I know that the phrase doctor, if you break it down to its Latin roots, actually references teacher rather than physician. I do know this. But moving into contemporary society, a doctor of medicine of some variety. And then there's teachers who have doctorates. And I always kind of get a laugh out of people with their doctorate who go, no, I'm a doctor. Like, okay, can you save me from having a heart attack?
No,
I'm a professor of economics. You're not a doctor. Shut up.
I, at one point, was going to go back to school to get my doctorate in social work, and I told my dad my only reason for doing so was to have to make him call me doctor.
You should have done it. You absolutely should do it.
Yeah. I have,
again, having doctorates in non... I don't want to say useless things, because I razz my mom on occasion about her not getting her doctorate in speech-language pathology. But having a non-medical doctorate just amuses me to no end because, I'm Dr. So-and-so. Oh, what are you a doctor of? You just have to, look at the ground kind of shamefaced and answer the question.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do with a doctorate in social work considering, my lifelong dream at this... Yeah, I'm not teaching. I've tried teaching social work once. It went poorly. I'm not doing it again. Hey, we watched a movie this past weekend / Tuesday.
This episode of Damn You Hollywood, rather than Robert and Mark BS about their lives, we are reviewing M. Night Shyamalan's latest feature, Glass, the final part of the Unbreakable trilogy.
Nope.
What?
Nope.
What do you mean, nope?
It's the Eastrail 177 trilogy, not the Unbreakable trilogy.
How did you arrive at that?
Glass, a 2019 American superhero thriller film, written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. The film is a sequel to Shyamalan Ding Dong's previous films, Unbreakable and Split, cumulatively forming the Eastrail 177 trilogy.
I was not aware that was the title of that particular thing. For those of you unfamiliar with that, again, Shyamalan's second feature was Unbreakable, which featured Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis. The sequel to that was, several years later with Split, starring James McAvoy, who should have received some... for both that movie and this one. He should have received some award love, because... McAvoy's acting in Split was tremendous, and it's tremendous here. It could easily be caricature because he has to go through so many different characters, but it actually works, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for both of those movies.
Truly, he's one of the, in my opinion, he's one of the few saving graces of Glass, but we'll get there. But yes, Eastrail 177 refers to the train that was derailed in Unbreakable, revealing that Bruce Willis is in fact the Unbreakable Man. It is also the same train.
As long as he doesn't encounter water. What is it with Shyamalan and hey, the planet's 70% water. Let me keep creating these things that are vulnerable to it.
Well, I mean, you just answered your own question. When there's 70% of something around, it represents a significant threat, don't you think?
Well, I mean, you are like 60 to 70% water.
Yeah, but
you and I are.
You want to create an ever-present threat if you're going to create one. Why not? Why not water? It's everywhere. It's easy. I mean, you don't want to overcomplicate this. It's like, it has to be a specific type of wood. Then you have to find ways to get that in there. No, with water is everywhere. You're right. It rains. It collects in puddles. There's pools.
Sure. So you are now an impotent individual if you happen to live in Florida where it rains frequently.
No, instead he lives in dreary as fuck Philadelphia,
where it also rains frequently. Incidentally, I am for the first and last time in my life going to be jealous of people in the city of Philadelphia.
Bill Cosby once referred to it as Filthydelphia, but why do you say such things?
Because the UFC event in Philly got its main event over the last couple of days, and it's Edson Barboza versus Justin Gaethje.
Violence.
So much violence. Anyway.
Yes. Plot synopsis. Go.
Okay, hang on. Hold on. I have to ask about...
No!
Just hear me out.
I'm
curious about what... Hold on. I just have to ask, because you're not a fan of Shyamalan's work generally.
Nope.
What led you to putting this on? Was this just, we have to have a Damn You Hollywood in the month of January, and this is the most interesting thing to me?
No, I was genuinely curious after the success of Split. When the idea was thrown out there that he was going to create that Split was connected to Unbreakable and was itself the second part of the Eastrail 177 trilogy, and that the next thing would be Glass, I was genuinely curious. I thought, look, I'm not gonna go ahead and say I don't like M. Night Shyamalan movies. I'm gonna say I haven't liked his movies so far. Most of them. I like The Sixth Sense. I didn't see Split, but I've heard it's good. I'd probably like it if I saw it. If I
you probably would. It's it's similar to this in the sense that it's a very intimate movie, but it's also a lot more of McAvoy's acting.
Yeah.
I need to.
Full
disclosure, I haven't seen Split necessarily.
The last M Airbender, Lady in the Water. I mean, everyone says they suck. So what is there to talk about there?
I don't think Lady in the Water is as bad. I think it gets an unduly bad rap.
I've heard
Airbender.
I've heard The Visit is great. Here, hang on. I have his filmography up. So, I saw The Sixth Sense that I liked. I was in Stuart Little as an extra, believe it or not, but that's not one he directed. Yeah. I don't enjoy Unbreakable. I think it sucks. And for more on that, check out the latest On Trial. Haven't seen Signs. I thought The Village was okay. Everyone hates Lady in the Water, and I've heard it's terrible. I've never...
Look,
I don't know what The Happening is.
Oh, The Happening is so bad. I mean, first of all, it stars Mark Wahlberg, so it can't be good. And then it's worse from there. Like, that is so bad. There's literally a scene where the characters try to outrun the wind.
Speaking of which, the last Airbender, from what I understand, is so bad it should be studied.
No. This goes beyond so bad it should be studied. This is so bad it should be forgotten.
After Earth, I've heard, is terrible. And then
that After Earth came off as so much more of like just a vanity project for Will Smith.
So everything from The Lady in the Water to After Earth is terrible. And then he comes back with The Visit, which was good, from what I understand. Split was so good that they green-lighted Glass. And here we have Glass. And here's what I'll tell you. I'm going to try my damnedest tonight to not give in to the same sort of forces that make us rip apart movie reviewers in the third part of our program. I'm going to try to review the movie as fairly as I can and leave my personal opinion out of it. Because I do feel like there are some truly interesting and cinematic elements that are appreciable about this feature. I just fucking hated it. That is the difference. And I'm allowed to hate things. I'm allowed, I don't really want to get into, Mark versus Robert round 10 that only Mark only likes shiny things that blow up. It's not even about that. It's, I have my preferences, but I can recognize when something is well done. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to try to leave my personal opinions out of this.
So you're doing what I normally try to do.
And fail most times, but yes.
In fairness, yes, I fail. My life is a failure. I'm used to it. By contrast, I'm going to do what you normally try and fail to do.
That's not true. I don't fail. I can usually excitedly and with a lot of passion describe what is good about a film and what I like about it.
Yeah, so that's because in full disclosure, I enjoyed this movie a fair bit. I also know there's a lot of it that isn't good.
You first of all, you are one of those people who I'm starting to realize really do enjoy a good gay cowboys eating pudding type of movie. So I'm not surprised that this boring piece of horse shit just tickled your bag. Having said that, I'm sure there's a lot of wonderful elements of this movie that we can talk about and enjoy.
Yeah, the supreme irony of your joke there, I really don't like Brokeback Mountain.
Every time I do the gay cowboys eating pudding thing, you say that. Like it's going to stop me from using the gay cowboys eating pudding line.
I would like it to, because it was a stupid line when South Park made it.
It's never going to happen.
I know. All right, anyway, here comes your plot synopsis for those curious or worried about spoilers. We pick up with the I don't know if I should call him the Beast or the Horde or just James McAvoy.
The Horde is the collection of, I would say the Horde if you're going to refer to his character, because the Beast is one specific personality. Yeah,
the Beast is a personality. I mean, you could call him Kevin because that's the original personality.
Well, in the wiki, it's James McAvoy as Kevin Wendell Crumb / the Horde.
Yeah, I loved that. They credited him with all the individual characters that he played. That was great.
Waka waka.
I'll probably go back and forth between those two, but you'll know who I'm talking about. This picks up in the aftermath of Split, where he is, spoiler for that movie, largely successful in releasing the Beast and killing a bunch of people and going on a rampage. Now he is still trying to do a lot of the same stuff. As I understand it, the basic premise of the Beast is I'm going to show people what the peak of human capability is.
I believe he also punishes those who he thinks are pure, but those who have been molested, he's got
a thing about people who have not had to deal with a bunch of shit in their lives. Like, how dare you? How dare you have a good life? I will punish you for this.
That sounds about right.
But anyone who is broken, he is their champion. He is trying to encourage them to rise up and show them what they're capable of, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the character has kidnapped a bunch of cheerleaders, and they're waiting for the Beast to come out and kill and devour them because he cannibalizes them. While that's going on, we have David Dunn, who is still being a low-level vigilante out in the world. He breaks into the house of a couple of morons who, jump people on the street for crappy YouTube videos. And he proceeds to beat the crap out of them, which I found deeply cathartic. But he is looking generally for the Beast because he is he has super endurance, super strength. As long as he doesn't get as long as he doesn't take a bath, I mean, he must reek. He is. Sorry, for those of you who don't know, his weakness. We referenced it earlier. His weakness is water, and he. So he's out looking for the Beast. He's walking the areas in Philadelphia where the Beast has attacked people.
He's walking in London, speaking Italian. Sorry.
I don't even know the song you just sang, so.
It's Walking in London by Concrete Blonde. You and Jesse were not born in this country. I swear to God. I feel like every time I talk to both of you, I feel like I'm talking to Moscow on the Hudson.
You just think that you just don't think there's a world west of the Appalachians. Just like everyone who lives in California doesn't think there's anything east of the Rockies. I mean, that cartoon from the New Yorker that shows like the New Yorker perspective on life, where it's just like, hey, here's New York, here's a bit of the coast, here's this great empty mass, Texas, maybe down here, and then California way over there. That is accurate.
Go on.
Anyway, as he is looking for the beast, he eventually finds him. We get a bit of a fight between the two of them, where they both get to show off a little bit of their superpowers before they are abducted by authorities and Dr. Staple? God, it's like this guy writes with a 10th grade understanding of symbolism. Anyway, they are arrested, not abducted. They're both criminals, technically speaking. They're arrested. They're put in a psychiatric hospital, and are told that that this doctor has 3 days to try and convince them that they're delusional and not actually superpowered, or the moon will crash into the Earth. It's vague. At the time, like, I have 3 days, and I'm gonna do. And if I can't sell you in 3 days, well, boy, howdy, I can't sell you at all. So we get a few interactions between the two of them. She has a therapist because she's also the person who has taken over care of Elijah. What is his last name?
Burke.
Burke. Thank you.
No, that's not correct, sir. That's a character in professional wrestling. It's Elijah Price.
Price, okay. Really? There's an Elijah Burke?
There was, and Sylvester Turkai.
I remember Sylvester.
Elijah Burke became the Pope, Dynamite De Niro, or Dynamo De Niro, or Dog-Eared De Niro.
Yeah, okay, I remember him. He was in TNA for a while. Anyway.
Yes. That's when he was Dope-Faced De Niro.
Anyway, she's taking over care of Elijah Price, and he is, of course, the super genius. What?
Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
I don't understand the reference there either, but okay.
Really? What?
You've made it a few times, but I mean, I know who Wile E. Coyote is.
Yeah, Wile E. This isn't that difficult. Wile E. Coyote says, I am Wile E. Coyote, super genius. He's not always a mute character.
Okay. I've missed that, I guess. All right.
You've never heard him say Wile E. Coyote, super genius?
No.
I feel like me, you, and Jesse have to do a podcast. Mark teaches American culture and culture.
No, this would be Mark teaches East Coast culture.
That's not an East Coast thing. Wile E. Coyote was widely represented throughout the United States. What, did you not have Looney Tunes in Europe? Not Europe, Utah.
Thank you. First of all, I haven't lived in Utah my whole life. Second, yes, I've seen plenty of Looney Tunes. I've never seen the ones where he talks.
Okay, well, I'm going to spam your Facebook page with talking Wile E. Coyote when we're done here.
I don't get me wrong, I know it's happened. I just don't recall ever seeing it, so. Anyway. So her whole thing is she's trying to convince these 3 people that they are normal, essentially. That the beast is a product of both a deranged mind and an incredibly gifted physical body. And seriously, credit to James McAvoy for his shoulders in this movie, because yes.
Hubba.
She tries to convince David Dunn that he's just unbelievably perceptive. Like, no, you are the best mentalist ever on an unconscious level. Which is so asinine. And Elijah's mostly doped out of his mind, or at least pretending to be for a lot of these early sessions, but she does succeed in getting the other two to kind of doubt am I really superpowered, or am I just extraordinary, but within the bounds of generally accepted human capabilities? The upper bound limit necessarily, but still human capabilities. We get some bits with some of the supporting characters. David's now grown son Joseph, played by the same actor who played him when he was in Unbreakable, so kudos for continuity. Who tries to get his dad out and winds up having some doubts of his own. The girl who survived in Split, Casey, and Elijah's mother, who all kind of visit them on occasion and are just, basically on their side out in the world, so to speak. And it is revealed as the movie goes along through the course of this 3-day period that Elijah's been stealing his meds and not actually been sedated for a while now.
It's called cheeking.
There's a lot of ways to do it. In his instance, in his case, he actually swaps out his meds like between guard shifts. He swaps them for like aspirin or something so that he can just take them as much as he wants and not have to fake it. But he's not actually getting the medication they want him to get. He arranges a meeting with the Beast after talking with some of the other personalities, so they can team up because he ostensibly wants the Beast and David to fight at the opening of the brand new Osaka Towers, which is a real Marvel pun and fully intended, I'm sure. And again, the Beast wants to get the broken people of the world to rise up and wants to do so. So now he needs publicity and a stage to do it on.
For the meek shall inherit the earth.
Okay.
What?
I mean,
that's what he's inferring.
That's true. I saw you brought up something interesting about the translation of that word from the original language into English, but...
Meek, inherit, earth?
Meek.
Yeah.
Like, the line, it says... It is translated as the meek shall inherit the earth. The word in the original Aramaic or Hebrew, I can't remember if it's Aramaic or Hebrew or Greek that it was originally done in, my apologies. But the literal translation of the word that they translate to meek, because when you translate you condense and whatnot, is not meek necessarily. It's those who have swords and know how to use them but keep them sheathed, which carries which I think is more accurate and gives that whole phrase a slightly different twist that is whole other thing. Anyway, again, so he wants that, and Elijah wants David to fight. His whole thing is he wants to know how he fits into the world, and the existence of super powerful beings to kind of complement the fact that he is a genius but is, Mr. Glass. Not just glass, like sugar glass. This dude is fragile.
As fuck.
And so he wants them to do this in public to kind of validate his view on the world. So he encourages David to get out and then go fight the Beast on this very public stage. He helps the Beast break out. David, utilizing his super strength and durability, does just kind of shoulder check his way through a giant steel door. They wind up clashing on the front lawn of the mental facility. David overpowers a bunch of security guards and then locks them in a container, and by bending a metal bar between theirs with his bare hands. The Beast overpowers and kills several of them. They fight. The Beast is about to win, but relents because he does want to do this on the biggest stage possible. So as he is escaping, Casey grabs him to stop him, and the relationship that Casey has established with a few of the different personalities, including the primary one, Kevin, and her physical contact with him, it's a bit overwhelming. And he winds up reverting to, again, his original personality of Kevin. At which point he is shot fatally by some of the police that show up.
Like you do.
David, while weakened after being thrown into a tub of water with a massive tub of water with the beast, is then dragged over to a relatively deep pothole that is now full of water and drowned. And the beast turned on Elijah after it was revealed that, and this goes a little bit into Split, but the formation of the dissociative identity disorder that goes on in Kevin's head is that it was brought on by his mother being an abusive, sadistic person. The reason she was given free rein to abuse him all of his childhood was that his father died in a train crash that turns out to be the same train derailment that Elijah used when searching for extraordinary people and revealed David being, unbreakable. So he turns on him because in these types of stories, as was literally noted by one of the characters, when the two bad guys team up, the smart one always has some kind of key about the other one's past that he doesn't want to know. So the beast turns on him and winds up killing him very easily, in essence. So as Elijah's dying and David's being drowned by these people who share a club-shaped tattoo, and when I say club, I mean like the playing card club, not, a truncheon. The doctor comes over and takes his hand, and one of David's other abilities is that if he touches someone, he's given sort of clairvoyance into their past. The dark things that live in their soul. He is the shadow in that respect, I guess.
He can see what crimes they've committed.
Yeah, and as they take hands, he realizes that she is part of this secret society whose only purpose is to suppress the existence of superhumans. That they just don't want the knowledge that these types of people can exist in the world and do. And because it's not fair, and society would crumble, and really we're just all about communism, and everything has to be equal. This includes all your physical abilities. I assume next on their hit list is the Olympics, because how dare Usain Bolt have all that running potential? She goes over to Elijah and tells him, take some solace in the fact that, you were right, if nothing else. And please die peacefully, and Kevin dies in the arms of Casey. Turns out that Elijah had played them all for fools, and all the security cameras that are all throughout this building had both been running this entire time and streaming all of everything that they had recorded to a private server that he then emails access to his mother, Joseph, and Casey. After he's died, so this was all set up before he died. And they decide to release all this information to the world. Dr. Staple realizes that all of the efforts that all these people have put in are just essentially going to be destroyed. And the three essentially true main characters sit around some train station. I forget which one. I don't know what they all are. And just get to see people looking at all this, this footage and whatnot in real time as it's released, and remark that this is the beginning. This is how a universe gets started. And I glossed over a bunch of stuff because there's a lot of stuff that goes in that winds up being like contextual rather than just plot related. So that I do want to get to. But Mark, you said you hated this.
Yeah, but that's not really what's important here. So what's good about this movie? It's pretty well performed. I mean, obviously James McAvoy gives the best, most colorful, most energetic performance. Samuel L. Jackson can take plain speaking and make it entertaining just by virtue of his charisma. So even though he does a lot of his dialogue looking dead-eyed at the camera, he has a special way of doing it that's very unique to him. So he was kind of fun to watch for the most part on screen. Bruce Willis is okay. I mean, Bruce Willis obviously is not a bad actor, but this character that he plays in David is very meek and kind of mousy, despite, this phenomenal things that he can do. And so he's about as interesting as dry toast, in terms of a performance. But that's what Shyamalan apparently wanted out of him was, hey, could you be as white as humanly possible and dry?
It's really I think the problem was he wanted him to be as reluctant as possible.
Yeah, well,
because he is the reluctant hero, but I think they took reluctance and dumbed it all the way down to as uninteresting as possible.
Well, I said in Unbreakable that he's sad and dead-eyed. And
he is sad in that movie. I mean, that's part of the fundamental premise of his character. Is this is a guy,
but I don't think he's
struggling with that.
He's not much better in this movie. So there's that. Sarah Paulson, I believe her name is. Sarah Paulson is Dr. Ellie Staple. She does a really good job of playing a mental health professional. She comes across.
Speaking of dead-eyed.
Look, having trained in this professionally, I know that like whenever I have to deal with a patient, especially one that has had to be forcibly removed from their housing unit, and I have to do an assessment. There's things you do with your voice. There's a whole approach so that you come across as empathetic and not as attacking, especially in an environment. Which is important in an environment like mine when you're dealing with, people who can be very hostile or what have you. And I thought
you deal with a lot of crazy people.
Did a lot of angry people, that's for certain. I deal with a lot of people who are coming off drugs, and so they're highly irritable. And you can't do what some of our nurses do, which is start yelling at them. And what some of the detention deputies do, which is a very direct approach. As the mental health professional, the idea is to get people to talk. She's got these three individuals: the Horde, the Overseer, and Mr. Glass, and she is trying to get them to divorce themselves from the premise that they are superheroes. She's trying to get them to attack their own delusions. You can't do that by yelling at them. So I thought she did a good job playing, because you don't know that she's really an operative for this group until the very end of the movie, because I can't remember exactly when I think I suspected earlier. But as soon as they start fighting, and her call to the staff is get everyone away from the south side windows, I went, okay, you're part of the cover up. I understand. Okay, thank you, Christopher Rattledge. I get that you saw that coming, but it isn't revealed in the film until David touches her. When he's about to be drowned.
I mean, unless you're not paying attention, it
doesn't matter. We're talking about narratives right now, not can you guess what happens next? So anyway. So she, up to the point where she is revealed to be, the true villain of this thing. She does a very good job of portraying herself as an empathetic mental health professional. That's where I was going with that. So, let's look at this on a checklist of boxes, right? Performances were very good. I don't have any objections there.
I mean, in fairness, even Bruce Willis, who is, again, kind of uninteresting in a lot of respects, is still
dead-eyed zombie.
Still does a good job. And again, if that's what they wanted out of him, he certainly delivered dead-eyed zombie.
Yes, I believe Shyamalan was going for dead-eyed zombie, and Bruce Willis delivered. So you can't really fault him for that. Yeah. Shyamalan also, and again, I didn't see Split, but I can feel, I just from some of the stills that I've seen, the commercials that I remember, Shyamalan has a real thing for dreariness, and he certainly was here's Philadelphia is brought to you by Seattle, kind of a look at things.
No. Mark, that's just Philly.
Either way, as the show tells us, and I've seen in person, the sun does in fact shine in Philadelphia. But not in the Night Shyamalan movie. Apparently, he only believes in dark covered skies, cloudy days. That's what he likes. So, from a cinematic standpoint, he does very interesting things with the camera. I don't particularly like it. I don't enjoy the overuse of the close-up, but it is an effect that he tends to employ with a plume. It's just all over the fucking place. It does give you a sense of claustrophobia. It does heighten the eeriness and the tension of the movie, which is, since this is supposed to be a suspense thriller of sorts, is what you should be trying to achieve. He makes very good use of the camera that way, and I think Glass effectively does that. I think, while I was struggling with it, I think for the most part, there was a large portion of the audience got what he was going for, and it was effective. Does this work as a parable about superhero? I brought this up in the On Trial on Unbreakable, and I did so in a really silly way, but because because that's just me for you. But he's trying to comment on the modern superhero film, even in 2000, before we really got going in earnest with where we are today, which was the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how it's affected everything around it. He was still commenting on superhero movies
to the point where an undeserving movie is now nominated for Best Picture because superheroes and black people.
So what's he commenting on? He's commenting on the Michael Keaton Batmans. He's commenting. He can't be commenting on the X-Men movies. Those were contemporary. The Spider-Man movies hadn't come out yet. So you take those out. So again, what's he commenting on? The Michael Keaton Batmans. The Supermans of the 70s and the early 80s. He's commenting on some of the other.
I think in reference specifically to Unbreakable, I think he's also touching on comic books more so than comic book movies in a lot of respects. He is using the medium of film.
Yeah, I agree.
But a lot of what he touches on is stuff that again in the intervening years has been adapted, but at the time was still just sitting on a shelf.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, 100%. Let me walk this back a little bit. Unbreakable is a commentary on the paper comic book structure, specifically the origin story. How in comic books you have a Human Torch and a Mr. Freeze, and they're working opposite one another. I understand what I just did there, but I'm trying to just give an example. Fuck off.
I was not going to comment on that. I knew what you were doing. I completely get because you're just talking about how you get one guy at one end of the spectrum and one guy at the other.
Someone actually commented about this, about how in a lot of the Marvel movies you have a hero with an established set of powers and a villain with the same set of powers. And that goes on for a while. You have Hulk and the Abomination. You have Iron Man and Ironmonger. A different set of films and well before all of that, but Spider-Man and Venom. And someone commented that they were getting tired of Marvel villains having the same exact power set as the hero.
Fair complaint. Especially if you really think about it. Like, when was the last time you saw a Marvel, especially a debut movie, that the hero was not facing someone with basically their power set up?
Yeah, it's you can talk about Thor and Loki being more of a yin and yang than a mirror image of one another, but
that's fair.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
Yeah, the Red Skull doesn't really have a power set. He's just a Nazi zombie. No, the Red Skull is another super soldier. There you go.
And that's literally how he's created. He's an earlier batch of the serum that wasn't perfected yet.
Okay.
So he literally has the same powers as
Captain America. Moving on. So where I was going with this, where Unbreakable is commenting on comic book structures, and to one degree or another, doing so in a subversive way, doing so in a the antithesis of bombastic. If the modern superhero movie, even up to that time, was something that was supposed to be, or even the modern comic book, which is supposed to, jump off the page and be fantastic and take you to an otherworldly place, he grounds his in reality. He's sort of the forerunner to the gritty fucking Netflix version, or the Chris Nolan Batman. of its time. You know, he's looking at what happens when normal people in a normal universe that operates with the same physics that we know and love in our world suddenly has superpowered people in it. What happens? Whether or not that's successful kind of is individualized to your own, take on the movie. Glass is supposed to be that continued conversation about what is the comic book structure, and the problem is I don't think that Glass took the conversation any further than Unbreakable did. Elijah Price, Mr. Glass, makes a lot of the same points over and over again that he made in Unbreakable. At least as that I can recall. No,
there's a fair bit of repetition there. He does not, and in minor fairness to this point, bear in mind, not from a writing standpoint, because I agree there's things that could have been done better in the movie as a whole. But I mean, him as a character he hasn't really changed.
No, but that's the thing.
His worldview is still the same.
It's like, I think that's my one objective problem with Glass is, if you're going to do another one of these movies, you'd have to do something else with the conversation you started. He made well enough points in Unbreakable, good, bad, or indifferent, whether you like the movie or not. There's a stated opinion about comic books in Unbreakable. It's there for you to chew on. It's grist for the mill. He doesn't take it any further in Glass. It's the same exact point. The only thing that happens in Glass that's different from Unbreakable is, at the end of Unbreakable, the big twist is he revealed that he derailed the train. He burned down the haystack to find the needle, as I said on trial. And
in fairness, that is a really good way to do it.
And in Glass, it's a bigger haystack, but the same effect. He burned down yet another haystack in order for the world to see the needles. Okay, that's all that was accomplished with this movie, and so on a personal level, I don't feel like there's enough narrative happening in this movie to warrant an entire feature. I felt that personally it was a very hollow film and a very uninteresting narrative. But that goes to the fact that he doesn't accomplish any. It's essentially he wrote this one-act play in Unbreakable, and someone said, "How about we make it a full-on Broadway musical?" It's the same fucking story, though. You know what I mean? It's. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't feel like Glass did anything differently than Unbreakable did. It just did it in a grander fashion.
I think there's some truth to that. I think part of the issue is that you need. I don't mean you specifically here, mind you. I think this is the general you, not the specific you. I think it is important to consider this as a continuation of that story. His goal was to both find his place in the world, and once he realized, what people are capable of, so to speak, to then show it to the broader world. The only part of that he accomplished, really accomplished, was figuring out that I'm not a mistake.
Right.
That there is a...
But he did that in Unbreakable.
That's what I meant. In Unbreakable, that's all he accomplishes. And then, David goes on to continue working quietly in the shadows, and no one really pays attention. So the entire second half of his stated goal goes unfulfilled as of Unbreakable's conclusion. This is the continuation of that same essential, again, plan and goal from his perspective. And again, I get what you're saying, and I think it could have been conveyed better. But part of the reason he doesn't, it feels like he doesn't necessarily accomplish anything different, is that it's still the same plan. He just only accomplished half of it to begin with. This is simply the finishing of that stated goal set rather than the adoption of a new one. So it does feel very samey.
I also don't like the idea of thinking that somebody with dissociative identity disorder has a superpower. He's a survivor of trauma. I'm assuming sexual trauma. And, the brain with dissociative identity disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder, the brain essentially, in order to save itself from the trauma being inflicted on it, will create all kinds of defenses. It comes out in different ways. Flashbacks, multitude of identities, etc. I'm not an expert in this. I've studied it enough to be able to deal with what I have to deal with in my own job. There's tons of readings on this stuff. The point being that the brain is resilient, and but in doing so, it creates these disorders in order to deal with the greater trauma. That's not a fucking superpower.
Okay, if I may, that is somewhat addressed in Split. His superpower is not his disorder.
Okay. It's his ability to somewhat physically change. I think he can't. I'll go along with this for the ride here. I believe it's dressed even in Glass that he has a physiological change where he becomes to a degree invulnerable and super strong when he becomes the Beast.
Yeah, if memory serves, and again, it's been a while since I've seen Split, and I've seen it piecemeal, not in one sitting. So forgive me for potentially mischaracterizing this because I've beat that same drum with you. A mental disability or autism is not a superpower,
right,
guys.
Yeah, CR review of The Predator.
Yeah, just not a superpower.
Having autism doesn't make you a hacker.
No. What goes on with him is it's less to do with the fact that it's not about his trauma. It's about I think it is. The trauma was not. He's not that way because he was traumatized. It's more that allowed. That was
this mutant ability to come out.
Yeah, it was one gateway to this path where the brain is so powerful that if it's able to alter his physiology.
I will withdraw my previous comments. Then I get what you're saying, and it explains it well enough.
It's basically if I believe hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds a little bit demeaning because true belief is actually one of the hardest things in the world. But the brain is so powerful that it can neurochemically alter your physiology.
Yeah,
that's what he does.
I'll withdraw that complaint. It just, I don't know. It came across as a little silly to me.
If you haven't seen Split, I completely get where you're coming from with that because it does that is kind of what it feels like. But there are conversations in Split that specifically address all of that.
Okay, well, that does bring up one point, is that if you haven't seen Split, movies should be able to stand on their own. It's something we talk about with a lot of the great trilogies of our time. Does Return of the Jedi stand on its own as an individual movie if you haven't seen A New Hope? And that's a problem with Return of the Jedi. Does Return of the King stand on its own as its own movie if you haven't seen Fellowship or The Two Towers?
Largely, yes.
And that. But again, in critical film analysis and review, that is one of the elements we need to examine. Can this film stand on its own without having to reference the other films? You just saw a great case of me fucking up a film review because I haven't seen Split, which goes to the writing and lack thereof in Glass.
No, Glass absolutely does not hold your hand if you haven't seen the other movies, and I agree that can be that is off-putting.
Lastly, I don't have a whole. As far as critical analysis and film review of an objective nature, I don't have a tremendous amount more to say. It felt a bit. I said it felt a bit hollow. I don't feel like it reaches far enough. I don't feel like it goes deep enough. I don't feel like it says anything about the nature of comic books that wasn't already said in a previous film. It doesn't stand on its own. The performances are good. For the most part, the cinematography is fine if you were going for dreary.
In fairness, I think he is.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with the guy's vision, even if it's not particularly appealing to me. And then, so that's really it. That's all I have to say about it.
All right. Personally,
I agree with. Hang on. Did I do a good job of being objective?
Yes.
Thank you.
More people should. A lot more people should. Again, I do want to have because you talked about what your issues were objectively. Then you said at the end, okay, here's why I personally have issues with it. That's how that should be structured, is my belief. That's why, again, when I do this, I try to do basically what you did. I try to go, okay, here's my problem, here's what I think structurally, here's what I think works, here's what I think doesn't, here's why I like or dislike it. Because it allows for the appropriate separation of those two things. Because I enjoyed this movie, and I don't have any issues with anything you said critically. I feel like there is, and this is actually part of something of it's a crying shame. Maybe not crying, but it is a shame that as comic book movies were just starting to take off, that's when we got the Watchmen adaptation. Because comic book movies now, and bear in mind, I will specifically cite the MCU because the DCEU is barely a thing, from a narrative perspective at least. I mean, it exists. There are movies. Aquaman just made $1 billion. So it's not going anywhere necessarily, but it's not coherent. Or cohesive. I mean, we're not even sure Henry Cavill is still Superman or not. We don't know if Ben Affleck is still Batman. Like, there's too much confusion there. Whereas at the moment, the MCU is stable. I say at the moment because this time next year, I'm not so sure, but we'll see. And given the massive success, comic book movies as such are ripe for a good deconstruction. And Watchmen, very famously, deconstructed the superhero genre in comic form. And then I actually like the Watchmen movie. I'm probably in the minority there, but I did enjoy that movie a great deal. And it's just kind of a shame that we're not going to get some adaptation of that really tackles now that we've got comic book movies that are commercially successful, critically successful.
Hang on, let me jump in here. We don't know what we're going to get with the HBO series.
Also true. A deconstruction of Game of Thrones, where everyone lives happily ever after. Which, I mean, bear in mind, Game of Thrones in and of itself is a really interesting deconstruction of a lot of fantasy to begin with. So,
everybody fucks on that show. Everybody.
Yes.
Everybody fucks everybody.
Yes, this includes brothers and sisters.
Yep. That's my takeaway. I'm smart. Go on.
Well, look, we know why you watch the show, at least.
Boobies!
That's all it takes.
It's all that's needed.
That's why Mark's getting back into professional wrestling, because they showed Alexa Bliss topless.
Nope, that's not what happened at all.
It's technically what happened, but it's horribly misleading.
No. I'm saying I'm not watching Raw because I've heard about Alexa Bliss topless, but I'm good with just videos on YouTube. Go on.
All right. So the point being, I definitely feel there was a much deeper conversation or discussion that could have been had around these same topics that this movie doesn't really dive into. And it's kind of a shame because it was well positioned to do that. It just didn't for whatever reason. I wish they would have done more with the interjecting of doubt, because I think there was a sense of I feel like there should have been more time spent kind of with, okay, okay, Elijah, genius. There's a lot of geniuses. The Beast does some pretty crazy stuff. Does some very upper echelon human stuff. But that's not the same as superhuman. I would have liked more of a slightly greater discussion and a bit of paranoia and doubt about, okay, well, wait, what have we really seen? And can we explain it away? Because that is, in many respects, that is what should have been, in a lot of respects, the central kind of crux of this movie is, well, wait, are they or aren't they? And it was well positioned to have, I think it's kind of a shame they never had a real discussion between the Doctor and Elijah, because there you have the person desperately trying to convince these people that they're not spectacular, that they're not super, either for her established reasons of simply wanting to make this her field of study, or for the actual reason of if they believe they're delusional, we don't have to kill them. Against the true believer, the guy who knows, like, no, I know my place. I have learned my place in the world. I have learned, I have seen the hidden truth of the universe in some respects, and you're not really going to dissuade me from this because you can't. I mean, he had one of my favorite lines from this movie when he's talking with one of the identities. It might have been Patricia, within James McAvoy's character. And he just says, everything extraordinary can be explained with science. That doesn't mean it's not true. Mm. Which is a profoundly brilliant line in a lot of respects. And I think I'm sad they never got to have that conversation between the two of them, because
is it just me or does M. Night Shyamalan have good intentions, but he's kind of a shit director in that he can't follow through on those intentions. It's like I feel just watching a couple of his movies and him kind of batting about maybe 50%, maybe less, that I think
there's something good there, but he's not quite the guy to get to it.
I was going to say, I feel like he'd have been better off as sort of a writer and producer, and he needs a director to bring about that vision. Like I feel like he's in that George Lucas camp of guys with great ideas, awesome imaginations, who need people to execute their visions for them because they can't do it. These are people that need editing. They need people around them that they can give tasks to bring about their vision. Because when they do it, they're not competent enough to see it through to its fullest potential.
That's probably relatively fair. Okay, what else? Because there were things again. I say this about this movie because some people have pointed out how telegraphed the plot points are. I mean, telegraphing is an insult. These are like smoke signals. Like if you don't, if you don't see everything in this movie coming, it just means you're not paying attention. And I don't mean that in some detail way, because I'm a stickler for details and thinking things through like that. I mean you're literally not paying attention to the fact that they're referencing comic books all the time. So of course they're going to follow this very specific structure with the turn and the the gathering of characters. Again, if you don't see it coming, it's literally because you're not paying attention. And if it's that telegraphed, I can't help but feel like it's intentional in some respects. So I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it doesn't mean there aren't things that couldn't have been done better, because very clearly there could have been, I think. But for what it was, I enjoyed myself for the 2 hours I was there. More so than at a lot of other movies.
I did not. I feel like you're always finding a way to make me feel the suffering that I make you feel with movies. And I'll tell you, though this was not intentional, I was hoisted by my own petard. The experience I had with this movie was boredom, hatred. I wanted to throw things at the screen at times. I walked out during the scene where young Elijah Price is on the ride, and he loses his protections, and so he starts to hurt himself unintentionally. But this is a very, very personal thing for me. I can't watch children get hurt like that. It was unbearable, and I needed to leave. I went and got popcorn, I think, or something, or whatever. I came back when I knew the scene was over.
That's fair. I mean, like whatever gets your goat personally is whatever gets your goat personally.
I don't need to get into it any further than that. It was one of those where,
this poor 8-year-old with horrible brittle bone disease is about to board a ride that's probably going to jostle him about. This seems like a bad idea.
We watched Saw, and those, Saw, I would avert my eyes, but I didn't feel emotionally compelled to leave the theater because the pain of what these people were suffering was too much for my own person to bear. That was. With Saw, it was like, this is gross, I don't want to watch it, but I can listen to it just fine, and I have absolutely no affection for these people. I felt bad for that kid. I
mean, he's a tragic character.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And, scenes like that just kind of drive it home that, yeah, he's not a good guy. But, there aren't really, there's a reason he is the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
And, which is, in fairness, a mark of good character writing, that they're understandable, if not relatable.
Are we ready to move on here?
Let me think. Is there anything else I wanted to touch on? Again, this is a divisive movie, but again, I enjoyed it. I think a lot of this is going to come down to whether or not you enjoy this type of film. Because if you do, it's flawed. There's certainly things about this I'm not defending. I agree with you that it feels a little bit shallow. Like there's more there that they never really get down into. I'm not sure if it's overwritten or underwritten in certain portions of this movie, because there's just parts of it that, like, I wanted different stuff. I feel like maybe we spend too much time with the orderlies.
Yeah.
For reasons that are never made entirely clear.
Well, I kept thinking about, while I was watching this, Kill Bill. And, when she's catatonic and, the orderly there taking care of her is an utter piece of shit. It's just like, he's so gone out. Quentin Tarantino went out of his way to draw him as a contemptible human being so that when he gets his later, nobody feels sympathetic for him. And it was like, okay, so these orderlies are not going to make it very long. You have to kind of set them up in a certain way. Because, like, if you don't establish that the one guy's a talker, then the whole bit where, where
that scene I was fine with. Like, when he stops and starts talking with the guy about his essential oils collection, and I know
right,
people like that, I want to kill them.
But what I'm saying is, like, that was all you needed. All the other stuff having to do with that character, you didn't need any of it you can get to the same place a lot quicker with that character than they did. And I feel like that's one of the this is what I mean when I say these guys need editing. You need somebody that it's one of the first rules of writing, kill your darlings. And I feel like guys like Shyamalan and George Lucas, they don't know how to do that, and they've earned so much cachet in Hollywood they don't have to. But then they produce garbage. So, they sometimes you need somebody there to say, you have drawn this long line that goes to the same place you could get to with a shorter line. We're going to go with the shorter line.
And again, you could have filled that with some other stuff. But again, on the whole, I found it enjoyable. I like James McAvoy's acting. I like Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, the fact that at the end when he gets into his stuff that they brought him in with, he's got the coat and he actually has a tie pin that is MG. It it is it's over the top in some respects, but it's also like gloriously in character for a guy who is trying to bring a comic books to life, essentially. Like, of course he'd do that.
All right. Ready?
Yeah, I think that's it for this. So we should be moving on to the money. Mark's favorite thing. He's going to hate this movie because it made money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I didn't realize you were going into a bit.
Don't worry about it. Don't get me wrong. I have a. I feel like I should warn you about this. I have a gimmick that I'm working on that is going to directly impact you.
I was going to say the one where you continue to talk even past the, an appropriate place to stop to accuse me to do the next thing.
No. I'm working on cutting that one out because that's annoying. But no, I've got one that I genuinely have something I'm doing right now that is going to directly. I don't think it has yet, but it's going to hit you, and it's going to be amusing when it does. So I need to curry some good favor.
Whatevs. The production budget on this thing was $20 million. It's already done fine. It's made $100 million worldwide, which means, come March it'll be forgotten about in terms of money. But for the time being, for Universal,
it is the highest grossing movie released in 2019 so far.
It's the tallest midget, is what it is.
I am aware, but it is still the tallest midget.
So it's fine. It's Universal is kicking off 2019 with a solid effort. They are currently not the most laughable studio on the planet for the year 2019. Good for them.
It'll be Sony by the end of things.
I just want to go ahead and revisit 2018 for just a moment. You can pretty much take these to the bank in terms of this is where the year is going to end, and it's not getting much better than this. Obviously, the top four didn't change pretty much since the summer. It was Avengers, Black Panther, Jurassic World, and Incredibles. Aquaman rose to number 5. It made over $1 billion. I think it's just about finishing its run at this point, or it will be shortly.
And then it'll be released in India and make another $30 million.
Venom came up behind it, and it has already been greenlit for a sequel at number 6. Bohemian Rhapsody, almost $800 million. It might. They've released a version of it where it's a sing along. I thought about taking my daughter to, and then I was told to decide against it. So we might watch that.
Yes,
one
by
home.
all means, take your daughter to the theater to watch a bunch of Queen fanatics go to a sing along. Why would you think taking an 8-year-old to that is a good idea?
She likes to sing.
I'm not saying.
That's really. No. I didn't think about it much more than that. It's like, she can.
It's a Queen. And again, at its surface, like, it's a Queen sing-along. My kid likes to sing. This will be fun. She can actually talk in the theater and no one will yell at her.
Right.
Oh, wait, it's a Queen biopic. It's a biopic on Freddie Mercury. I wonder what types of people will be there.
I don't worry about that. So, yeah, we'll watch that one at home. Anyway, Mission Impossible, number 8. That's already been greenlit for, I think, 2 more sequels. Hooray, huzzah. Deadpool 2 came...
Why?
was knocked down at number 9, and the latest news on Deadpool is that the X-Force film has been killed, but Deadpool 3 is currently in pre-production.
I don't want to see X-Force. I don't want to see Deadpool 3, but of the 2 options, I think Deadpool 3 is probably preferable.
Fantastic Beasts fell to number 10, and the third part to the Fantastic Beasts trilogy has been delayed. So who knows when they're going to be working on that again. Ant-Man and the Wasp actually got knocked out of the top 10 because of some of these other films.
Shame, because Ant-Man and the Wasp is pretty good.
You're an asshole.
What?
We got into such an argument over that. I didn't think you were being serious.
Again, it has plenty of problems, but I think it's
a
better movie.
No, fuck you. Go back and listen to some of the stuff you said about that movie. You were so negative.
Because you were so positive.
The trees around you died. Okay, you could actually see them leaking sap. You were so negative.
God, that would have been nice. I've got at least one in my neighbor's yard I would love to kill.
Last thing about 2019, Bumblebee, which on a $135 million production budget has gotten to about almost $500 million worldwide. Whether or not this sparks a second Bumblebee single feature, or they continue with the ideas of doing an Optimus Prime movie, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure where they're going with this.
Neither were they.
But okay, they're part of Hasbro. Which is it Hasbro that has that's got their own studio now, or is it Mattel? I think it's Mattel.
I think it was Mattel.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the people at Hasbro and Paramount are doing at this point.
Look, they signed the rights to this over to Michael Bay and Platinum Dunes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what they're doing. None of them.
So we'll end up seeing where the Transformers go from here, but they are certainly here to stay for the time being, as Bumblebee is a relatively phenomenal success. All right, to 2019 we go. This is going to be a lot of dog shit, so bear with me here. The highest-grossing movie worldwide is currently Glass at number 1 with $100 million. At $88 million is Dragon Ball Super Broly. Then Escape Room, then The Upside, at A Dog's Way Home. How to Train Your Dragon is out in the world. However, it's not out in the United States just yet, but it has made $29 million. Then Replica, then Yuri, and The Kid Who Would Be King, and then finally Perfect Strangers, because nothing's going to stop us now. Honestly, we're in fuck you, it's January, none of that matters. As far as the weekend goes, the week of January that this all occurred, Glass was your number 1 movie, obviously. The Upside fell from 1 to 2. That's the one with Bryan Cranston and what's his face? Aquaman.
I'm not helping you out on that.
Kevin Hart. Aquaman fell from 2 to 3. Dragon Ball Z Super Broly debuted at number 4. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse fell to number 5 and apparently has been nominated for an Oscar.
Best Animated Picture?
A Dog's Way Home fell from 3 to 6. Mary Poppins Returns 6 to 7, which my kids enjoyed, by the way.
Hey, can we just say briefly about the Oscars this season? They're pretty much desperately going, please watch us, so we'll nominate popular movies instead of crap no one's seen that's better.
Yeah, well, I'm still not going to watch the Oscars.
I'm not watching them either, but I'm just saying, if you look at the list of nominations, there's very clearly a bit of, oh crap, our ratings are down. Mm-hmm. It's almost like people don't like listening to actors speak when they're not acting, because no one actually does. We don't actually have a host because we gave into crappy Twitter outrage over Kevin Hart.
Yeah,
he made stand-up jokes 5 years ago. Good God, we can't let this stand. And so they're like, okay, so we'll nominate Black Panther. That'll be our piecemeal for running a black man out of hosting the Oscars.
Escape Room fell from 5 to 8. Bumblebee 7 to 9. And On the Basis of Sex, which I saw and quite enjoyed, as a matter of fact.
I don't know how you could have possibly enjoyed that movie.
I was entertained. Felicity Fuckface was actually...
Jones.
Thank you. Felicity Jones actually gave a enjoyable performance.
Oh, she's a good actress. Felicity Jones is a very good actress.
Yeah, even though, granted, she wasn't in Rogue One, but,
she was. Just not... She wasn't written well.
They just gave her nothing to work with. Let's just get this over with, shall we? She's fine, and I look, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to apologize for enjoying a piece of liberal propaganda. It's not like I suddenly changed my opinion on a multitude of political subjects.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg being just one of the worst justices in Supreme Court history.
I don't care. I wasn't going there to cast a vote. I was going to watch a film with my AMC A list. Okay, go fuck yourselves.
All right, I'm glad you had fun.
Thank you. And I think we're done here with the money. As far
it's
as
January, there's not a lot of it.
This Friday is The Kid Would Be King and Serenity. I mean, Then there's Miss Bala.
God, I saw a preview for that and went, who thought this was a good idea?
I'm sure it's got a market out there, but I mean, these are going to be widely forgotten.
I can't imagine what it is. I genuinely cannot imagine the argument, the audience for that movie based on the trailer I saw.
Excuse me. And then February 8th, there's Cold Pursuit, which is the new Liam Neeson movie.
That looks so stupid. I can't wait.
Yeah. The Lego Movie Part 2, which I'm sure will win the weekend. The Prodigy, which is the Creepy Kid, the latest Creepy Kid picture. And then, do you remember a Mel Gibson movie from years ago called What Women Want? Do you?
I do.
Well, here's Terigi Parigi Cookie from Empire doing the Mel Gibson thing in What Men Want. Have fun, everyone.
Hold on. Let's do a couple of things about this, just about that movie specifically. First of all, yes, What Women Want was, again, late 90s, early 2000s. It's Mel Gibson, Helen Hunt. I want to say like Kristen Stewart plays his daughter in that. It's like child. It's like years ago. And it's about a guy who gets struck by lightning and wakes up with the ability to hear the thoughts of women. And it's played for laughs. It's played for a bit of romance. It's a crappy rom-com from the 90s. What do you want? But it is at least based on the premise that women think interesting things, which is true more often than not, I would imagine. I have no earthly idea who thought, hey, you know, it would be funny if a woman could hear what goes through a man's head.
Tits, 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 and vagina. Tits, 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 and vagina. Now I'm hungry.
You're not wrong. Like, that's what kills me. Like, I saw the trailer for that movie, like, for What Men Want. Like, oh, it's a woman at a sports agency. Oh, how daring. And, oh, no, she can't get ahead because it's a boys' club. Clearly, hearing what men think is going to help her get it. No. Guys mostly say what we think, and if we don't say it, you really don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
We're not that complicated, people. So again, the notion that this would be funny to me is, who would only men think what other men think is funny. Like, no women are going to go to this and feel good about the experience.
So that said, February 13th is Happy Death Day to You 2.
Oh, I'm so torn on that movie because it looks terrible, but it might be the kind of terrible I can get behind.
At some point in the future, I may revisit those as like a Long Road to Ruin or something.
There's only the two.
Isn't It Romantic? And then Alita Battle Angel comes out on Valentine's Day. We'll be doing a Damn You Hollywood. We'll be doing a Damn You Hollywood review of that. And then finally,
who thought that was a good idea?
We'll actually have a guest.
The trailers for that, this is going to be a mess.
And so we'll actually have somebody on the show who's familiar with the manga that it was based on. So that'll be fun. All right, so that's really it. And I bring all that up to say, I don't know. Glass doesn't have great word of mouth on it. I mean, basically what I told people is don't listen to me and my opinion on Glass. Go see it for yourself and judge for yourself. Because I'm somewhat prejudiced. I don't particularly like the Shyamalan way of doing things, let alone his movies.
I'd be curious to see what you think of Signs in particular, because
apparently it scared the shit out of my wife to the point where she couldn't sleep when she first saw it.
Hey, it freaked teenage me out when I saw it the first time. Something about aliens, man. I don't know. I don't understand. Like, there's a bunch of my fear buttons that I understand. Like, oh, this scares me. I know exactly why I'm afraid of this. I do not understand what part of me, some of that stuff is punching in the face on occasion. But
all right, let's move on down. Ease on down the road here. Guess what? I have a question for you, Mr. Winfrey.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, we've got roughly. Well, this was more negative. This was more rotten than it was fresh. So we've got quite a number of these to go through here. So let's get to it. Sharon Nicole of Adobe.com. I liked it, but ultimately Glass needed an editor, someone to dial it back, give it focus, and help to find the true life moments that make good comics and good comic book movies work.
Again, there's some. I think that's a largely fair assessment. I also think that part of that statement at the end about what makes comic book movies work, I think again, if this is and it's not a deconstruction in the traditional sense of deconstructionism, but it is a very different, again, like meta, self-aware take on it, and I don't think you want too much. You don't want the people who routinely edit the Marvel stuff to edit this, because I think they would give it the wrong sense.
Yeah. Louisa Moore of Screen Zealots, a long-winded, thinly premised, half-baked mess of a movie. It appears Shyamalan has both given up and run out of steam.
I imagine this person positively reviewed Split, and I don't say that as a negative, but there's a lot of I don't understand too many people who have a very disparate sense of those two movies. If you liked Split, I don't understand what your major objections would be to this one.
I'm going to read these next two back to back. Michael Ward of Should I See It? And then Matt Oakes of Silver Screen Riot. Shattered. Broken. Cracked. Insert whichever pun you choose. Personally, this is one piece of glass I won't want to be looking at ever again. And if you think that's funny...
I don't.
The glass, quote-unquote, is half empty in a laughably bad ending to the Shyamalan trilogy.
Yeah, this isn't laughably bad. I mean, again, if you don't like it, that's fine. But again, if you want laughably bad, you have both Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Happening. If you just loosely sticking with Shyamalan's filmography for a moment. Those are so bad you can't help but laugh. I don't think there's a lot of laughter to be had in it. Again, even if you didn't like it, this isn't so bad. This does not stray into so bad it's funny territory at any point. Predictable, yes, again, if you're paying attention. It's horribly telegraphed. That's not the same thing.
Johnny Gazmonic, Fanboys of the Universe. What's frustrating beyond Shyamalan's inordinate fascination with his own work and his precious final act twists is that there really is nobody to root for in Glass. What?
I don't think... Really?
You root for Bruce Willis.
So you're not rooting... So not only you're not rooting for Bruce Willis, you're also not rooting for the genuine personality of Kevin, who they don't go into huge detail here, but who was horribly abused to the point of developing unbelievably debilitating dissociative identity disorder. You don't root for that guy to have a happy ending? Again, the Beast? No, sure, you don't root for the Beast. He kills people. Fair enough. But it's also abundantly clear that he is an aspect of this other person who is just desperately trying to deal with the pain that life has thrown at him. I'm sorry, if you can't root for that on some level, then I question your connection to humanity. And bear in mind, I do question my own connection to humanity daily. But you're incredibly wrong about all of that. I mean, in a somewhat bizarre... And again, I don't disagree that Shyamalan has a bit of a fascination with his own work. That's probably true. I would slightly object to the notion that this is one of those Shyamalan twist endings, because this type of stuff happened all the time in comics well before Shyamalan made movies. If you're talking and very explicitly dealing in material that does twists like this all the time, see things like, hey, the Secret Wars, or Captain America was a Hydra sympathizer all along. This crap happens all the time in the media that it is referencing. Of course it's going to do it. That doesn't mean this is one of those Shyamalan twists. I think you're radically mischaracterizing it.
Jennifer Heaton of Alternative Lens. I wish Glass were either much better or much worse than it is. It is neither a satisfying conclusion to a trilogy nor an entertainingly bad disaster. It's just kind of dull.
Yeah, I can see that. That's pretty fair.
We may have to cut this in a minute. I'm starting to go here. Let's see. If any of our friends weighed in here? Come on, Joe Morgenstein.
Not Morgenstern. I can't deal with old man Morgenstern today. I just want to kill him. I want to find him and throw hard-boiled eggs at his head.
Let's see here.
I want to find that 3-day-old pie. You know, at the pie store, the one that's old and crusty.
Here we go.
Pie him in the face with it.
Jeremy Johns of JeremyJohns.com.
You self-employed loser.
When your third act falls apart, that's what people are going to remember, and I feel that's what happened here.
See, I don't think the third act falls apart. I mean, if anything, the big critiques aimed at this movie should be aimed at the middle.
Yeah, I would say the third act is when something actually happens. Hang on, really quick. Sarah Mars of Laney Gossip, the glass is half empty. Boy, if I had a nickel for every one time you hacks use that
you know
that
what?
phrase.
To all the people who wrote that, I mean, look, I get low-hanging fruit. You all just sat under the tree, opened your mouth, and decided, you know what, I'm going to wait for this. I'm not even going to reach for it. It's going to have to fall to me. I am so... You are that, the character from the Shel Silverstein poem, who gets thirsty, but is so lazy she just waits outside for it to rain. That's you people and your quality of writing.
Chris Evangelista / film. Like Superman exposed to kryptonite, directing Glass has robbed Shyamalan of his powers.
No, really? You're not going to point out the infinitely worse movies that he's created? That statement makes no sense. Why would you reach for that metaphor if you don't actually have a conclusion to it?
Rohan Nashar of the Hindustan Times. Bruce Willis, once the biggest movie star on the planet, has been made out to surrender top billing, and Shyamalan, once the path-breaking genius, is now offering meta-commentary on not only comic books and comic book culture, but also, strangely, his career.
Okay, minor note. When did Shyamalan ever break ground? I mean, I mean this in all sincerity. The he's dead all along thing, he didn't create that.
Right.
Are you unfamiliar with film history, you moron? And second of all, of course, I mean, you mentioned that Bruce Willis was at one point one of the biggest box office stars in the country, in the world, sure. You know who the highest who has been in the... Do you know whose career... Again, this is weird to say it this way, but Samuel L. Jackson is the highest grossing actor of all time. If you look at the movies he has been in, he is the highest grossing actor.
I'm going to end with this one.
He and Harrison Ford actually have swapped it back and forth a few times.
We're going to end with this one. I think this one's very insightful. I think there's a lot to digest here and a lot to say.
When you set me up like that, man.
And I feel like this particular person really earns her star as top critic. Mara Reinstein of U.S. Weekly.
Oh, God, why?
I see disappointed people.
Really? Any other... you didn't want to throw a weakest link reference in there? How about this is like, I'm the king of the... Any other pop culture references you really want to reach at the peak of their... at the peak of their popularity there, lady?
Oh, wait, gets better. Eric Eisenberg of Cinema Blend. The conclusion of this film is a worse disaster than Eastrail 177.
No. I mean, one's an actual train wreck. One is I mean, again, one is a train wreck, one is telegraphed. That's not the same thing. Oh no, I can't believe they killed they killed characters. I mean, what media are you consuming where you're unfamiliar with character death?
Roger Moore of Movie Nation, Robert Winfrey's spiritual father.
I hate this man so much.
A watchable but self-serious and pointless dissection of the comic book genre.
I mean, of course it's kind of self-serious. Like, have you not seen Shyamalan's work? The Happening would be better if it were at least quasi-tongue-in-cheek or intended to be so bad it's good.
Hey, Robert.
Yes?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, no. Not old man Morgenstern. I'd rather talk to a Jehovah's Witness.
The concept is intriguing, but the emotional payoff is negligible. The surprise ending is feeble, and the whole enterprise resembles a recycling bin. Now get off my lawn.
Let's deal with a couple of these. Look, Grandpa, sit down for a minute. You got to take your pills. Okay, yeah, I'll give you the emotions a little bit flat. They probably could have, especially if you haven't seen the preceding movies. You don't get a lot of the emotional payoff. That's fair. But anytime you take a meta or again quasi-deconstructionist view of material, of course everything you talk about is going to seem familiar. I mean, that's like watching Austin Powers and going, boy, this sure seems like a recycled James Bond film, doesn't it? I mean, duh!
All right, this is the last one. Ready?
Okay.
This is a top critic, by the way. Mick
How do these people get this? In all seriousness, what are the qualifications for top critic?
How effectively you can blow one of the editors at Rotten Tomatoes. Mick LaSalle of San Francisco Chronicle.
No, Rotten Tomatoes doesn't have editors. They're just an aggregate.
Worst movie of 2019.
Not even close. Hold on. Hold on.
It's not right at all.
You had to do it. You just had to say it. So I have to look at it. So I'm going to look. Okay. Let's see here. So we haven't had a whole lot released yet. You really going to say this is worse than Escape Room? I mean, I like horror movies, but really? I mean, A Dog's Way Home is nothing but pulpy schlock. Replicas is... Really? You think this is worse than Replicas, which is just like Keanu Reeves? It's Keanu Reeves, like talking to Keanu Reeves. It's Keanu... You have, like, this might be the worst movie of 2019 because it's the only movie from this year you've seen.
All right, I think that we've reached our conclusion here. That's actually it for the month of January. Again, we'll be back in February with another Damn You Hollywood for Alita Battle Angel. But if you
Why is Jake Gyllenhaal a thing? Someone explain this to me. And I say this simply because... sorry, this might seem apropos of nothing. But I'm looking over February because Mark went through some of it, so I was curious what else shows up there. And there's a Netflix movie called Velvet Buzzsaw, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and I can't help but wonder. You see, Jake Gyllenhaal is a very capable actor. This is not a knock on his acting, and he was also in the trailer for... Because he's going to be, Mesmero or something for Spider-Man Far From Home?
Mysterio.
Whatever. They're all the same.
Racist.
Look. Hang on. You're a quasi-mystical comic book villain specifically related to Spider-Man, and your name starts with an M. You're all the same. And I defy you to prove me wrong.
I don't understand why you hate Mexicans.
What does that have to do with anything?
Rey Mysterio, never mind.
Hang on. So my point there is Jake Gyllenhaal, while a very capable actor, is in the worst movies you could possibly be in. Like, I wish I could see Jake Gyllenhaal attached to a movie and go, oh, I can watch Jake Gyllenhaal act. That because he's a good actor. But instead, I look at it and go, this man makes the worst career decisions possible, and yet still retains not a relatively A-list billing. But I know that his involvement is usually a mark against the entire movie, not because he's bad, but because of what it says about the movie generally. And I don't know how he has survived all of that.
Okay.
Anyway.
So if you've enjoyed the banter between Robert Winfrey and myself, you won't have to wait too long, because even though we're not doing another Damn You Hollywood until February 19th, we still have Voltron Season 8, which is February 5th, and Punisher Season 2, which is February 12th. So there's all that.
Oh, God. Both of them were disappointing in very different ways and for very different reasons.
Meanwhile, let's talk about this week. Tomorrow on the Metal Hammer... Scoogly. Tomorrow on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we'll be looking at the new Papa Roach, Who Do You Trust? And then Mr. Toxic Masculinity is everywhere you look. He's Pat Mullen, and he's going to be joining me not only to discuss Season 4 of Fuller House, but he'll also be doing a live... Robert Winfrey has abandoned the Rattledge and Broadcasting Network, and he took the 401 Ground and Pound radio show with him. So now that is the exclusive property of 401 Mania. So we said, well, fuck Robert Winfrey. We'll just do our own thing. So we're going to go ahead and do live commentary of Thurman versus Lopez, which is live boxing on Fox proper, at 8 p.m. So give that a whirl. You get to hear me and Pat do more commentary, which I'm sure will end with Pat saying boxing is terrible and I quit. We'll follow that up February 2nd with Sergey Kovalev versus Elater Alvarez, which will be on ESPN, I believe. 10 p.m. full card streaming on ESPN Plus. Oh, I don't have ESPN Plus. That might not be happening anymore.
Wait, which part?
It says the full card is streaming on ESPN Plus beginning at 7 p.m.
For what?
For Sergey Kovalev versus Elater Alvarez. I'll have to check my listings on that one.
Oh, God. I don't want to say anything that could get either of us in legal trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the internet.
All right. We'll talk about stealing later.
Sorry. I don't condone stealing, but
sure.
this is one of those things I have to, anytime someone goes, and again, anytime someone says something like that, I just kind of like, I roll my eyes a little bit because I know you're not naive enough to think that there aren't other options. If you're moral enough to resist them, I absolutely applaud you.
And I do.
No, you don't.
Real quick, really quick. Jesse Starcher has never seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, yet
what the hell?
Yeah, I know. Yet we reference it all the time, and so it's finally on Netflix. We're going to strap Jesse to a chair Friday night, and we're going to make him watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and we'll do a live commentary over that. So that'll be fun.
Monty Python and One of the Holy Grail is the best movies ever.
It's up there. The following week, it's Runaways. We've got a Runaways on source material. We've got Runaways Season 2 on TV Party tonight. Pale Horse Named Death on the Metal Hammer of Doom. And The Crown Season 2, and then the aforementioned Boxing on February 2nd. February 4th is The Search for Ray Palmer. Voltron, then Bring Me the Horizon. And then the next On Trial will be February 7th, and will be for Pan's Labyrinth. The question was asked, what could you possibly say to prosecute this thing? I don't know. I've never seen the movie. I guess we'll find out.
Which movie are you prosecuting?
Pan's Labyrinth.
I mean, look, I can tell you how you will prosecute it.
Okay.
How dare there be dialogue? How dare there be dialogue I can't understand, and why I hate reading subtitles. This is the worst.
None of that's true. I'm fine with subtitles.
And why is everything done practically? I want shinies. I want computer-generated imagery, not this very talented actor in a suit.
Okay. You go ahead and eat a dick. I'll be just fine, thanks.
No, in all seriousness, like joking aside, that is Pan's Labyrinth is one of those rare, like essentially perfect movies.
Oh, then it'll be fun to poke holes in it. We've got the Punisher Max Volume 5, The Slavers on source material, then Punisher Season 2 on February 12th, Beast in Black, February 13th. We're off of Valentine's Day, and then nothing on Friday, and then Pat and I are back for Leo Santa Cruz versus Miguel Flores, which will be on Fox, and more live commentary. We've got Alexis Hana will be back for DC Looney Tunes 2, and then Damn You Hollywood Alita Battle Angel February 19th. We'll welcome you back to Avantasia on February 20th, and then again Alexis Hana will make her second shot that week as we'll be reviewing Carmen Sandiego, the new animated series from Netflix. And we finish off the month with Emerald Twilight, Black Mirror, Bandersnatch, and Dream Theater, because my life is terrible. Dream Theater sucks. Actually, no. Dream Theater is fine.
All of those are pretty bad.
Not a huge fan of Dream Theater, I gotta be honest with you.
But I don't think any of those are any good.
Good. All right, that's it. That's all I have to say about that. That's all I got to say about that.
All right. As for myself, I was back in the MMA zone of 411mania.com a couple of days ago for UFC Fight Night 143 / UFC on ESPN +1. And I'm going to continue making bad jokes about ESPN, about the UFC on ESPN and their polyamory. Because apparently they're going with the naming scheme of +1, +2, +3, +4. Whatever. And how many pluses do you need, guys? Again, I'm going to continue with it. So you can check out my full report for that event. We had stupid controversy in the co-main event because someone scripted it that way, and I don't mean in the sense that it was fixed. I mean that if you were to sit down and like, okay, we have Greg Hardy debuting in the UFC. What's the dumbest, most perfect thing we could do? Him getting disqualified for landing an illegal knee after having a bad fight for 7 minutes. That's what it would be, and that's exactly what happened. Also, again, the main event, Henry Cejudo Dunn rolled over TJ Dillashaw like a steamroller. That was funny as hell to watch. And then TJ after the fact. TJ's still undefeated in his own mind. No. The ref stopped the Dodson fight early. The ref stopped this fight early. I don't know how they scored the first fight for Austin Sow. I don't know how they scored that fight for Cruz. I'm the best ever. I want an immediate rematch back at flyweight. Gimme. That is TJ Dillashaw.
A man after midnight.
You know, Stuart Lang posted on Twitter after something TJ said, "Shut up, skinny Owen Wilson," and I can't unsee it. I cannot unsee that comparison. It's hilarious because I also hate Owen Wilson. He's so bad. But anyway, so check out my full report of that. Again, the latest edition of the 411 Ground and Pound radio show where we go over all the fights from that card. We also talk about all the major news of the last week in MMA. I get to gush about Gaethje versus Barboza because one of them is going to die. Those two are going to kill each other, and I can't wait. So, again, you can check out all of that. Speaking of 411, Mark will be in the Fact or Fiction segment in the MMA zone of 411 Mania this week. So give that a read. Vote for who you think won, not Mark. I kid. Seriously, vote for who you think won, whether that's Mark or the other guy. Who is the other guy? All right. Also, a new thing that's come up, I think, over the last couple of weeks that I'm going to be doing. My Fridays, which were previously free, are now not, apparently, for the near future. For those of you who don't know, Larry Zonka, again, one of the bosses over at 411, who shouldered a workload comparable to like 8 other human beings, mind you. He's indisposed for the moment. He's posted about it on Twitter. I don't want to go into details, but he's out for a while. And so the site has been kind of like trying to find 8 other people to do the workload of one Larry Zonka. And a section of that fell on me. Well, it fell on me the first time, the fact that I volunteered for it ongoing because I'm a nice guy.
Here's my question. Is this going to affect countdown to Endgame, which we have scheduled for Fridays in April? Yeah.
It might.
What are you doing? And what are you doing? And tell me when I have to cancel this countdown series that you pitched.
Hang on. I don't. Again, it's April, so it's enough time. It's enough time in advance. I might not have to. I can probably work around it. I'm going to be covering Impact Wrestling.
Oh God, why?
Because it drives traffic.
Are you fucking serious?
Look, they sent again. Like all the there was an email that was sent out saying, "Here's the stuff here's some stuff we want covered live. Here's stuff that we're happy to have just reports on after the fact." We could really use someone covering Impact. It has a fan base. It has people that tune in. Again, so if someone could, and I wound up doing it a couple of weeks ago on short notice because Jeremy Thomas just messaged me kind of out of the blue and said, "We need someone to cover Impact. Are you free this evening?" It streams free on Twitch, and I went, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I proceeded to then piss off everyone who was reading along and commenting because I hadn't watched any professional wrestling in 5 years.
So was there a lot of who the fuck is that guy?
No, there was a lot. There were a lot of people that I knew, and bear in mind when I say any professional wrestling, and that's weekly, reliable stuff. I watched a fair amount of Lucha. I binged a fair amount of Lucha Underground 2 or 3 years ago. I binged a fair amount of that, so I knew a lot of the main players there. The last thing I remember watching on Impact, which was then TNA, was Nigel McGuinness's debut because I loved Nigel's work. And bear in mind that also includes all things WWE related, just hadn't seen. And I said this at the top of the thing: is okay, there's a lot of people who are going to show up whose faces I don't know. A lot of my pro wrestling knowledge at this point is osmotic, and apparently this makes me a WWE mark. So there was that.
That's
at
fucking
this point,
hilarious.
At this point, part of the reason I think, this might be amusing is just to see how much they all can't stand me at this point. So we'll see. But Impact is also, it's only 2 hours. It's I think it's 6 to 8 my time. So I might. Again, I will, if no other solution has presented itself in a few months when that comes up, I might very well just tell them, you guys don't pay me enough for this when I have something else I'd rather be doing.
Okay.
So we'll see. I will do everything in my power to make sure that I can still go through with that because I'm looking forward to that series, but you also don't pay me enough either, so.
All right. With that said,
Thanks for putting up with us, everybody. Glad you're all still here in 2019. We're looking forward to it in a lot of respects here on the Ride Legend Broadcasting Network. Again, we have a fair amount of Damn You Hollywood lined up, which should be a lot of fun.
We have a new tagline, by the way. So we're no longer, when you sign off, we're no longer saying be well, be safe, and behave. Our new tagline is we look forward to offending you in the future.
Well, on behalf of Mark, I'm Robert. We're grateful to have offended you in the past and look forward to offending you in the future. Stay safe, everybody.